the one.
G'day guys, welcome to the next episode of Two Red Chairs. Today I'm here with Shane Carroll again from Aspect Brands. He's my buddy in crime here for this podcast. I like having him in here because we just talk shit about whatever the fuck we want.
Brand smack.
Yeah, totally stuff for designers here in terms of the things that are going on in our heads, especially because Shane and I have a good banter between us over the phone every week or every couple of days nearly. About certain things that are going on in our business.
Sometimes it just drags on, eh?
Yeah.
I've got about 10 minutes free, man. Let's have a chat.
Yeah, and then went 2 hours and we're like, oh my God, maybe we should just be doing this more podcasting. So, Shane's back in here for the third time to do this next podcast.
Thanks for having me, bro. Thanks.
No worries. And he came up with this idea to talk about success versus status, which I think is kind of interesting in the fact that what is it that we're chasing if we're running our own business or in our design career or a side hustle, or even just in your own kind of, if it's a hobby even, like, what is it to you? Why are you doing what you're doing? That kind of stuff, to have some kind of goal. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to explore both sides of what success means, and then if the pinnacle is to have status, or if success is status, or can you have both? Obviously, I think you can have both because there are many people out there in life that do have both. But yeah, what does that mean to the two of us? And let's, shoot the shit.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because, outside of the last maybe decade, 2 decades, status always followed success, but now we're starting to see success follow status. It's like people who have status, and it's like, I don't know why they have status, and then they turn it into success.
Yeah, gain traction. Like, I think the more worldly example of that would be the Kardashians.
That's exactly what I thought. Like, they had status long before anyone knew a single thing about what they did.
Exactly. And this is the interesting thing, I think, in my head, is that especially for the two of us, that we're both into branding. Branding is very long-term, where you're building something that is there for longevity, whereas short-term sales and marketing and stuff like that is very much more geared towards that short-term success. So if you're trying to build up status and build brand, that's one avenue to do it. It takes longer, but the payoff for someone or a family like the Kardashians is just, Kylie Jenner or whatever it is, I think that's Kylie Jenner, is just worth a few $billion easy.
The whole family's net worth is just off the Richter.
Amazing. And I've got nothing against that family, whatever. A lot of people have, their things about, Kim and Kanye and all that. That's a whole nother fucking conversation.
They're playing the game, man.
But that's it. And they show up, and they appear, and they put it on for everybody because that's what everybody expects of them, and they do it with a smile.
They're a great example because they also, the amount of content.
Yeah.
They're just so content-centric.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And this is my approach just in general of, from a G'day Frank and the G'day Design Life, is to put as much content out as I possibly can without burning the, bridges, or burning the candle at both ends is the term.
I'm on my Instagram feed.
It's just me.
Frank. Just see this guy's head like this.
A virus. And that's probably the same for the Kardashians, where they're just everywhere. They're like, if you're an Australian, Eddie Maguire, like, he was just everywhere. He may as well have been in the Humphrey B. Bear suit,
I think he was, wasn't he?
Probably. But there's people out there that you can do it to death to the point where you're just known globally. And it gets to a point where you become globally known, or in your own avenue, industry, territory, whatever it is. But it's going to take a hell of a lot of, getting into that psyche kind of thing. So that's where in terms of branding, the more you put a logo everywhere in someone's business as a designer, the better that business will have as an outcome of ROI on that investment, because people will recognize that business, be it on the label of a bottle of wine or on their website or on their packaging or a mail out or whatever the hell it is, and that then creates success. So that whole status thing of building brand and everything,
very interesting, isn't it?
Can translate into the whole success thing. But maybe the frame of mind of where you're thinking in this is, where do you start first?
Yes.
Like, do you start with the ambition to be successful? I mean, at the end of the day, fuck it. We're all looking to be successful in our own way, shape, or form, to have a tidy income and be happy with what we do and all the rest of that kind of stuff. But then to have that translate into, if it's monetary success, or is status the success, to be known?
It's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Exactly. And credibility is probably a big thing of that status.
Absolutely.
Where you might have a tremendous following on one platform or the other online, be it on Instagram, YouTube, whatever, and be known for that. You're the guy from YouTube kind of thing.
Well, the value of status is that status by association is such a big thing.
True.
My clientele, I work with this company.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah,
status by association. You could just say, I developed the logo for Jim's Pies, and it keeps you right here. But then you say, hey, I helped develop the logo for Woolworths, or and it's just like the status is like this contagious. It's like this. Status by association can really bolster your business and take you to a platform that... Or
it helps nurture, I think, your ego. When someone asks you, what is it that you do? And you say, as you said, I did work for the pie shop, and you're just like, that doesn't really, bolster you up in someone else's sense. But if you've said, like, I've worked with Disney, I've worked with realestate.com, I've worked with Volkswagen, I've worked with all the different TV networks in Australia.
It helps create a perception.
And that's kind of a very vain thing to translate and communicate to somebody. And I don't feel all that amazing about doing so. But for that person, they're probably looking for, are you somebody to actually be interesting? Am I going to be interested in you if you only talk about someone that's designed a logo for socks? Or am I going to be or is that person going to be interested in someone that's designed something for Coca-Cola?
Well, people want to feel important. So
yeah, that too.
Yeah, so it's this great big thing, and obviously this is, success and status is completely in the eye of the beholder,
and it can be pretty fucked up as well. Like, depending on the person you talk to, they could be that person that's just looking for, I'm not going to deal with you if you haven't worked with these big brands or whatever.
Well, think about okay, take it right down to a basic level. Think about school. Okay,
yep.
Think about being in school. You got people who are like the popular kids, or they're the cool group or whatever it is. There's this economy of status that unfortunately is just like a human nature thing, right? Even in the world, like everyone, look at that, for many years I've played in a band, and status. 100% status leads into success, never the other way around. Just because of the nature, just because of the nature of the music industry, and the two are hand in hand. They don't, it's very hard to achieve success in the music industry without people revering your band, your act, your music, and having that status.
Yeah, and there's like it's one of those things of status that's a stepping stone to greater opportunities that then leads to greater success, and success is more eyes on you, more money in your bank account, more opportunities to do more stuff, all that kind of thing that comes with it. So if you opened for Metallica, let's say, if they end up coming back to Australia next year,
cancelled, silly boys,
and they end up coming back to Australia, and your band was the opening act for it, that would propel you
massively
to the next echelon. And there's always stages of that status. So if you've got now, let's say, a very small following of 200 followers, like you do currently on your Instagram page and Aspect Brands, and then you get shared, you have a product, or you've done a logo, let's say, for the Kardashians for one of their products. Like if Kylie Jenner comes out with a new fragrance and you do the label for it,
Kardashian collection,
and she credits, or on there there's something that says Aspect Brands. Like the difference, that's where the
Yes.
translate what was it, the word,
how did I spiel it? It was like a
what was the word? My God! If you're listening
by
to this,
association. It
by
was like-
association, yeah. So it
status by association.
It transfers
That's it.
across.
Oh,
Exactly.
we got it.
There we go. So it transfers across to somebody else that's done that work. So for you, if it's like I've sat down for dinner and someone said, what do you what do you do? And I'm like, I do branding design for businesses. Like, have you? Is there anything that I would have seen that you've done?
First question out the gate, dude.
And that's it.
People want to know if they're sitting with someone of importance, right?
It gets the conversation
just
flowing.
attach it,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with somebody asking you that, but don't be disheartened, I think, if you don't have something that is of credible nature. Like, for me, I still do it, and it was like 6 years ago now, maybe 5 years ago, and I designed the logo for Family Feud Australia. And that was like my calling out. Everyone was like, what do you do? I'm like, I designed the Family Feud logo. And they're like, oh, okay, I've seen that. Like, yeah. And
saying that surpasses every other thing.
yeah, and it gets you kind of to the next part of the conversation where someone goes, oh, okay, you actually do some, I know what you do. Like, I understand what you do. Maybe that's it, that I understand what it is you do. If I've seen it, or I understand it, or whatever it is, or you've worked with that person. Oh, okay, that must be, pretty important then. Like, if you've worked with that person or whatever. And it'd be like, excuse me, my dad, like he works in the music industry as well. And, if you looked at his resume list and someone said, oh, Andy, who have you worked with before? And he'd be just like, name a big act, and he's got it. And
Name drop.
And that doesn't mean he does any better job either. Like, he could be the best job but have done, stuff for a kids show on, ABC Kids or something like that, but could still do the job really well, just the same as the person that could do something for the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And he's worked for the Rolling Stones, I'll add that.
Jeez.
But if you get what I mean there
100%.
in terms of, it maybe it's just showing what it is you do, and because you've worked for that upper echelon of client or person, or you've sold X amount of copies of something like a book or CD or an online course or whatever it is, a font, then you have that kind of credibility, and that in people's minds translates to success in their mind. Like, just because you've put out a book doesn't mean you've got thousands and thousands of sales, but to somebody else, that's credibility in its own.
Just the book being out, of course. Yeah.
And I've talked to many people that have written books, and they said, yeah, it's a great sort of conversation starter, and it adds some clout to what it is you do, and people start respecting you in a way. And I'm like, seriously? No, yeah, because a book is one of those things that is not something that everybody does. And if you're doing something that not everybody does, if it's, a podcast even, and then people go, if I had knocked on the door to somebody or sent you a DM or an email and said, do you want to come on my podcast? No one says no. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I'd be able to do it. Unless they're not comfortable with being on a podcast. But it's generally a good in to start having a conversation with somebody, especially if they're not someone that you've ever really had a chat about or chat with before. And you kind of like, or you'd probably want to have had a chat before, let's preface that. But it gives you some credibility to go, if you have a podcast, you must have some cred or whatever now, because a podcast isn't something that everyone's doing. I'd say give it another 2 years and a podcast might not have the same gravitas, because podcasts have been around for 10 years now, but
they're hitting it big at the moment.
They're hitting it real big now.
Yeah.
As audio starts getting into a new realm of interest. So let's talk about success though. Let's say from myself, my own point of view, success has a bit of a teetering point. And I was talking about this with Connor Fowler in one of our, I think it was our third episode. And we only touched on it, but I mentioned that Gary Vee was of a person that's trying to shift the whole success mindset from what it is that you have in your bank account to being happy with what you do.
Awesome.
So I'm kind of a bit of...
That's actually great.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of a both minds of that. Like, to be successful, you do need to have what it is you do translate into something that can, earn you a living, because, that way you can keep doing what it is you're doing to have more credibility, to have more status, if that's what it is, or just keep chugging along in life and bringing you some happiness. But at the end of the day, if you're doing something that's not making you happy, then that doesn't really feel successful in my mind. Like,
absolutely not. No.
When I left university, I wanted to start my own business at some particular point. I didn't want to work for somebody else. I'd watched my dad do it for the most part of his life. And to the point where, having done it now, I'm just like, okay, I feel successful now because I've done this all myself. I'm not doing something that I enjoyed working full time and everything like that, but
you've created something for yourself. And
it's gone well,
and it's going well. You're looking after your family.
Yep.
And success is on this level. And,
yeah.
I mean, I was successful in previous jobs I've been in, but they were not like even an iota, like not even a little bit fulfilling. For me, success is just fulfillment, really. To be fulfilled with what you're doing, and I can look back on the first year of my business that I'm just finishing up now, and be like, my year was a success.
Yeah.
I have created something for myself. I don't have anyone else on board. This is all me. Every touch point of my business is, hey, it's me again. I feel like that is a success in itself. That us as designers, with the skill set that we have, we can start our own business and use our skill set and our skill set alone to create an income, which can then allow us to live this life we want to live.
Yeah, it's very self-fulfilling.
It is fulfilling, yeah. I think that is, for me, success is each little win. Success is landing a great client. Yeah. Doesn't necessarily have to be a huge client, just a client that you really like working with, you really gel with.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So success, there's no, there is the grand success where you feel content with what you've done and what you've accomplished. So that's that. There's accomplishment, but success is an incremental thing. I think. Success is paying off that debt. Success is, getting rid of the old crappy car you've been driving around and buying a nice new car. I don't mean to attribute that so much to physical possessions. But
it's just intangible things.
A mindset. If you can have a mindset that you've always wanted, that's a success.
Yeah. And this is probably one thing to be aware of, is that when people attribute success to, let's say from the design point of view, that you've worked with a big brand, that experience of working with that brand could have been absolutely fucking painful for you deep down, that was like the worst experience you've ever had, but you're telling yourself that was the best thing your career's ever had happen to it because you've worked with this big ass brand. And
that's interesting. Yeah.
And you could just hold that internally, and someone would say, what's the biggest client you worked with? And you're like, Apple or something.
And you say it, and there's this little pain through the back of your eyes,
on your shoulder, and it brings back that memory, and that doesn't feel successful.
No.
Having worked in my previous job, I was interacting with some big brands on occasion, but I didn't feel like I wanted to let that go to my head, because it was always not work that was off my own back. It was off, attribution through that business. Okay. So it didn't feel all that successful, but it was nice to say that
because the client was acquired through
correct
means outside of your own. Okay.
Yeah. And so it was something that it didn't feel like it was my win or anything like that. It was just I was doing the job, and it was like dealing with whoever I would usually be dealing with. When it was Star Wars, though, that was like, because it depends on when it's something that you enjoy and you like. And it was a very minimal thing that I ended up contributing to over the grand scheme of things of what this business ended up doing with Star Wars.
Just a little BB-8 icon, was it?
It was barely anything, really. But I happily would tell that story, that I could say that I've done some.
You contributed
kind of
one thing
with Star Wars, and I fucking love Star Wars. I'm just obsessed with Star Wars as a little side kind of hobby interest thing. And it's those kind of experiences that I feel that we're having that experience as an employee in that business was successful, because it brought me that joy. The same as working with other people that brought me happiness. I mean, case in point, I worked with my wife. We, hooked up. We got married. We had a child as a result of it.
Success!
And that's success.
That's awesome.
No one does that in business. No one hooks up with somebody that they work with and then it ends up fairy tale. It doesn't...
Definitely difficult when you work by yourself.
Well, now it's a bit different. You're talking to the mailman. That's probably about it. But awesome. And this is probably the next point that I'd want to cover is thinking that someone else is successful because they look like or they appear like they've got their shit together. I don't have my shit together. It may seem like I have my shit together because I can output all this stuff on top of having done client work, having a family, especially with a toddler involved, and do all this stuff, and everyone can say, I don't know how the fuck you do this or why you'd want to put yourself through all this. But the same respect, that success part of it is that I enjoy this. But if you look at somebody else that has, the status of 10,000 followers, 1 million followers or subscribers, whatever the metric is, and you think that they're successful, they might
What if they're miserable?
They might be in total pieces.
Yeah.
And you're not to know, and that's why I don't like the idea of comparison in a way. Like, you can be envious and look at somebody and go, geez, that would be pretty cool. Like, if I had that kind of lifestyle, that would be very interesting. Like, I used to watch Casey Neistat videos and go, man, like to ride a boosted board and hold, a Gorilla Pod with my camera on there and just do whatever the hell I kind of want and vlog about it all day, like that would be a pretty cool lifestyle. But I don't think that would realistically be for me. Because I've tried it, I've got out there with that Gorilla Pod and given it a shot, and it's not quite something I'd be, wholly into. But you look at someone like that has that success, that you think they have success, because they're doing so many different things with big brands, and again, that attribution. But then deep down, they could be just absolutely burning out. And for him, as an example, like, he did kind of burn out. Like, he stopped vlogging. Him and his wife moved to LA from New York, and he's, kind of went dark and took some time to reflect on the last 5 years that he'd had, especially on the YouTube platform, and gone, okay, I'm just going to stop and, enjoy myself for a bit here now, without the pressure of that. And so everyone has something that's going on in their life, I think. So where are you at with in terms of your own idea of status then?
Status for me is a byproduct of hard work and success I have in my own world, my own business. So for me, success and fulfillment are one and the same thing.
Yeah.
If I'm fulfilled, I feel successful. But as well as that, so many people play the game where, and this is definitely in the sort of design space. Everyone looks at some of these, great big profiles, huge contributors, great influencers in the space, and they think they need to do that. But take it right back. Do you want that status, or do you want to create a successful business? So for me, I've just been tirelessly working on creating a successful business. Successful in that it fulfills me, but also successful in the sense that I can see that where I am now versus 12 months ago is down the road. I'm progressing. I'm growing. For me, that's success, to just be growing. And it's like I said, man, it's this incremental wins. It's the small things.
But even just being content though as well.
Just being content, absolutely. A lot of people out there, in one way or another, chase a lifestyle that they think they want, and then they get there, and it's the same thing's always touted. You get there, and then you want more. You get there, and you want more. Contentment is so underrated.
Yeah. I've experienced this where I had a goal for the first 12 months of my business.
Yeah.
I got to it within 8.
Awesome.
And I was like, okay, now what? Because you get to that point and then you have this really weird, well, I did, and I know everyone else is probably different, but I got to that point and I just remember myself looking out the window going, okay, should I feel something now of a sense of accomplishment, or or should I go out and buy like a lottery ticket or a bottle of champagne?
You're looking
or something?
at the next thing already.
Then you start looking at the next thing, and I was like, well, what the hell do I do now? Like, I've got to here. Is it that I need to earn more? I'm like, no, I don't need to do that. Is it that I need to explore or work with different kind of clients? Or is it that I give back to fellow designers? And that was pretty much one of the results of it, was to give back. And once I think that you are comfortable in your own success, then you start possibly looking for that status. Maybe it's a cause and effect, nearly.
Yeah, I think so. But I don't think success is a destination. It's absolutely
just a running path. It's just a running total. Like, this is something that I've seen Michael Jander talk about at More Jander. If you're looking for him on Instagram, and we've had him on the show as well. Actually, should have just touted that. He put up a post a few months back now, and it was about climbing mountains. And there was a simple analogy in the fact that if you're looking for success to reach $100,000 in a year, it's a big-ass mountain to climb, especially if you're only just starting your business. And you climb and climb, and there's some serious trials and tribulations to get there, and it's a hell of a lot of work, and you're absolutely puffed out getting there, but you get there. What happens, though, when you get there is, though, that you see the next friggin' mountain.
The next peak.
Like the next Everest, and then behind that is the next Everest that's even bigger again. And it's just it depends on if you are the person that is happy with that, or you're the person that wants more. And human psychology would probably suggest that we always want more.
We always want more.
It's like you have a bag of popcorn at the movies. You finish it, you want more.
Where's that popcorn?
Exactly. And it's just something that is maybe inherent in a lot of us, that once we have something, we're going to be looking for how we can get more of it as an insatiable kind of need to quench that thirst for success. Or if it is a metric, like let's take a following, for example. You get to 100 followers. You're like, I can't believe 100 people are following me or subscribing to my channel. Like, I'm still amazed that 100 people have started listening to this podcast at the time we were recording this. And it's probably more by the time this airs. And that's amazing, and where it's listened to and everything. But then it gets to the next echelon of 1,000 people. Milestones. And then that, in your mind, you want to be getting to the next one, and you're not satisfied. Like, I was satisfied if I was going to get to 1,000 followers. And I'm like, that's incredible. And then there's 1,000 people. I don't even think I know 1,000 people. Like, really, if I thought about it, I don't think I could write down 1,000 people's names. And
yeah, good point.
And then now on G'day Frank, depending on when you listen to this, like when we were at the time of recording this, there's 8,500 people following my G'day Frank page.
Throw them all in one room. That's a lot of people, man.
It's more the people than come to some football games here in Australia. Like, that's 100%. It. And then there's other people that have 100,000 people following, and that fills the MCG. Or 1 million people, and that's how many people are watching a television show.
What I think's amazing is just how diverse this spread of people are as well.
But then it's not the point I'm trying to make there is that you don't want to take it for granted, like not take it for granted. I mean, you can take it for granted if you want to. It's totally freaking up to you. But to realistically think about back to yourself, to make maybe it's to be humble, I don't know, but then be able to say, yeah, this, like, to look back in retrospect and go, how did I get here, and be as grateful as possible, or just take it for what it is and just keep going and look for the next part of success. I mean, it depends on your personality and the way you want to go about it. For me, it's always like, look back and go, 6 months ago, there weren't this many people that knew me. I don't really want that many people to know me personally, but it's just it's a cause and effect of putting out something that's valuable to somebody, and maybe it's the appearance of success, or me just trying to develop brand, which in turn creates status and then long-term success.
Well, success feeds status,
yeah,
and status feeds success, and it's just like this. Ding, 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 isn't it?
Yeah. It's like,
but it's like, what's the first step?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing to talk about. What's the first step? What are you looking for when... Let's put it in the context of what G'day Design Life is about. So it's to create a design business.
Yeah.
So what is the first step that you are looking for that is going to move you to the next step? The first step is obviously getting a client. That's success.
Yes.
That status could be that type of client, but probably not, unless you've just got really fucking lucky. Who knows?
Sometimes it happens, man.
It happens.
I've been pretty lucky.
Yeah, it can happen. And then, but let's say if it doesn't, and you're working with this, mum and pop kind of business or a friend's business or whatever it is, you do 10 of them, and then you get to a point where someone that you're referred to, or you have some credibility in terms of the work that you've made, that then gets put in front of the eyes of someone that has a bigger business that might have, a retail store that's, possibly nationwide or whatever. Still relatively small, but relatively known in its own space. And you do some work for them.
Another step.
Next step. And then you get to the point where then you start working with the full national big brands that could be the supermarkets or certain retail chains or products like, a signature kind of wine, like if it was a Penfold wine or something like that, where it's just like next echelon. And then you go to like a multinational thing, and then it up and up, you can go infinite kind of scale.
The status marries up with the success, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's kind of, at what point can you remain happy with that success without going any further?
It's yeah. Well, it's important that even right down on the base level, to just be so content and feel successful. I mean, hey, even like you said, like a mum and pop shop, like, man, this mum and pop shop is letting me design what they look like.
Yeah, they've trusted me. They've invested their money into what I can do as a result of their problem or whatever.
Absolutely. And obviously we all have ambitions, we all have goals where we want to be down the line, where we want our business to go. But it's very important that each step toward that goal, you still find yourself just find yourself grateful, find yourself successful in that this great big plan that you have, or this great big intention you have behind you for your business, can eventuate with these successes all along the way.
And then be content if it kind of plateaus even. Like, if your business plateaued into the point where you're working with the same kind of clients, are you happy with working those same kind of clients for
Absolutely.
the longevity of your business?
And if you're not, change.
If you want to be someone that... I've seen businesses where they do one set fee and they work with a particular kind of client in a certain niche or whatever, just for one type of service, and that's their business solved, because it lets them do other things. And I think that's probably something for me, is that if I could do the same kind of work for somebody where it wasn't all that challenging, it was my bread and butter, let's say, and I can keep doing it, and that gives me the outlet to do something else that I'm a bit more passionate about, which, to the frank point of view, is this G'day Design Life thing. Like, I currently work with some clients that give that sort of steady stability kind of thing to allow me to do this kind of work, and that breeds for me some success in its own right, because I'm doing something that I find some serious enjoyment out of. If that then in turn gives me some credibility and status, because I'm doing more and more of this and talking with more people, and more people are aware of who I am and all that kind of stuff, does that mean that this becomes more successful if it then translates into something that was monetized, or just to be known for one particular thing? Like, if you're an artist, let's say, and you're known for one particular style of art, or in music, you're known for a particular kind of thing, and that might not translate into success while you're alive, especially for artists.
How often is a career of an artist go gangbusters most post-mortem? Like,
yeah, and I've seen photographers. It's happened with photographers. Like, there was this lady, and she was nothing. She was a nanny, And
I heard about this.
Yeah, this is a crazy story.
It's awesome.
She was a nanny. She was like a traveling nomadic kind of nanny in the States, in America. And she was just really into photography. She had this, I think it was like a Hasselblad camera. It's one of those old kind of cameras where you look down into it. It was a film camera. And this was back in the 60s, I think, 60s, 70s. And she'd just go around street photography capturing certain aspects of her day while she was with the kids that she was, looking after, and just hoarded it. Every single photo. There was thousands and thousands of photos that she would just hoard from each family that she'd go to and keep until she died. And no one knew about her photography, that she was that kind of into it. People kind of had an idea that she was into it because obviously she had the camera around her neck when she'd walk around and that. But it wasn't until she died and her estate, which was basically just boxes and boxes of rolls of film that weren't developed, were bought for a measly sum by this young American guy at this auction, that he then took them, looked at the photos and was like, this is incredible, saw the value in it, took it to galleries and made something that her name became a status symbol of success in value. And the work is successful in its own right because of the quality of it. And
isn't it amazing that, she just went around and did that, and her contentment...
There was no goal to it.
No.
Like, there was no goal for looking for success.
Her fulfillment of doing that was the success. And the status didn't even come until after she was gone. Isn't that amazing? Similar story with Arthur Stace. Mr. Eternity here in Sydney?
No.
So this guy, Arthur Stace, very renowned guy now.
Okay.
He wrote the word eternity.
Oh, yeah. I got you now. Yeah.
He wrote the word eternity in this beautiful cursive writing.
Yes.
Every day for something like 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's estimated that he wrote the word on the footpath in chalk in Sydney, across Sydney. He wrote the word upwards of 600,000 times throughout the course of his life. Every day he'd get up at like 4 a.m. and just run around the city and draw this word out in the footpath, hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. And this guy was illiterate. He didn't know how to read, write, nothing. But this was his outlet. And this was his full...
Isn't it like a graffiti artist, but with some chalk?
Yeah, just a bit of chalk. And, by the afternoon, everyone had walked all over it and all the words had gone all across the city. But, I've read a lot about this story. I really love this story, and he just found such purpose in what he was doing, and it was a success. It was a success of his in his own mind.
It kind of kept him going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And after he died, there's just rapture of everyone was just like, man, who is this guy? Like, this is just amazing.
I want to know this story now.
It's just
becomes
an
more
iconic
intriguing,
story of Sydney. And I mean, the 2000
year 2000.
Year 2000, the Sydney Harbour Bridge had the word eternity written in cursive in his exact font
for New Year's Eve.
for the turn of the
century,
turn of the millennium. Turn of the millennium
for the fireworks display. Yeah. I
Which
remember that clear as day.
Like, man,
yeah.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like not unfortunate, but just be like, if he'd have been attributed to that while he was alive, if he was someone that wasn't of any stature or means or
would he have
anything
even
like that,
cared?
Possibly not. Who knows?
He was so content in what he was doing.
Yeah, it's admirable as hell.
Is, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to translate that to a designer, like if you were to, let's say, create a logo now, and it's for a startup business, let's say, and that you're not to know what that business is going to do in 50 years. Like, I dare say the person that designed the Coca-Cola logo or the Nike swoosh, that lady that designed the Nike swoosh for $30, was going to see that Nike would be the conglomerate that it is now. Like, you don't create...
value $30.
But she then got compensated.
Of course.
Which was nice of that company.
Rare.
But that's the thing now, is that I don't think you want to really be taking for granted those that you're working for now. That just because this business is a very small startup, if you're working with these kinds of businesses, and they use that logo for the longest time possible, and they become a brand that just transcends decades, and that's still your logo, that's going to be a calling card for you for many, many years to come.
That's a great point.
Which is now to basically talk about the conversation that I've had with Rob Janoff that designed the Apple logo.
Oh, yeah.
And for someone like him to have made something like that for Apple with Steve Jobs back in the day, you know, he didn't expect that to be what it is now. No one expects that to be what it is now. To see that success translate into what it has, for him, though, it's obviously giving him status, because everyone's just like, okay, who made the Apple logo? This is amazing. This is like the best logo I've ever seen, and it's the best logo out there ever.
I like the one with the color. This is the colorway through it.
Yeah, and
classic.
And that's kind of it. And there was a purpose to that as well. And I've been told that those stripes across it was just to make the Apple logo more family friendly, because computers were seen at the time as something that was very, you know, techie, nerdy, and only programmers used it at the time. And that was the time of where computers were, and that rainbow coloured Apple logo was to make it more family friendly, which I was like, okay, I didn't know that. That's pretty
awesome.
interesting. That aside, because that conversation was great, I don't think you want to be confusing status with success. Do you reckon?
They're two vastly different things. They absolutely can lead into each other, and they often do. I mean, almost always. Mm-hmm. But I guess the question that I would pose to designers is, what do you want? What is the goal? I mean, personally for me, I want to be successful on a very simple level, all the way up to, you know, whatever goal. I mean, even goals that I had last year are vastly different now.
Yeah.
But success is the steps along the way to your goals. And if, you know, if status is a byproduct of that success, so be it. But then obviously, you know, the world we live in, there's the other way where people first acquire the status and then they work back from that, and they monetize it all, or they then develop a lifestyle that they want, and then gain success that way.
Yeah, which is, to be honest,
it's interesting, and everyone's different.
To be honest,
for mine, it's probably success. I mean, it's absolutely success first.
Yeah. I think for me, between both G'day Frank and then G'day Design Life, they're two different ones. G'day Frank would be the success part.
Yep.
G'day Design Life would be the status part.
That's awesome.
But the status for something that it needs to be built up as something that is of use to people, and the result, look, to be just realistic about it, the result is probably going to be status. And I'm not being dumb about that either.
Oh, but that, you know, if you're developing this platform, creating status for this platform, people then see that status and they look at it as something that is to be revered and something that is to be, you know, like a bounty of knowledge that you're able to impart through this. People bring it to that place in their own mind.
Yeah.
And they, you know, we like catalogue things in our mind.
The tightrope that I feel like I want to walk, though, is not to be, not to have this be about me. This is like, fuck that.
Well, you've always sort of said that, you know, and I think what's really great about the platform, I mean, the podcast, to just discuss topics that are beneficial to designers, you know, the feature Fridays, showcasing other people's artwork. Like, you want this to be beneficial for all parties involved.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I've said this, and probably now by the time you've listened to this, to death, in that it's something that it's not about me, because, you know, fuck it, who am I? And, you know, I don't have all the experience in the world and everything, and maybe that's a limited mindset of my own. But I'd rather it be a collective voice for Aussies to realise that this is something that Aussie designers can do, and designers from around the world can do as well.
Of course.
So I'm not funny about success and status. You do see certain people in your own sort of circles that do things for different reasons, and reasons that you don't quite agree with. But my mindset that I've said, in a few instances, that my mindset's quite open now, in terms of being open to what someone else sees certain things. Like, instead of being closed-minded and this is my opinion and that's all that matters, and being totally ignorant of what other people are doing for what they do, I'd rather be a bit more open-minded. I mean, yes, I can have my own criticisms and all that kind of stuff of certain people and not agree with everything that everybody does, but
it's one thing to have an opinion, then it's another thing to block everyone else's.
Exactly.
Really.
So from here, I don't know where else we could take status and success, unless you've got something else to add to it. But
I would probably summarize and just say, a designer in their own business,
yep.
Is the goal to be, this figure of status or figure of success? I mean, I look at, there's many varying sizes of design business in the world. Obviously, really on the top level, worldwide, brand design agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And then on a very basic level, you got a, one-man operation just busting out logos or whatever it is. And I definitely, if you went back into the history books and looked at all these businesses, it was a step-by-step process. And now they're at the level where the status owes them the success, gives them the success.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's amazing is you look at some of the work some of these massive agencies are putting out, like Pentagram's doing the Yahoo logo. Like, I absolutely know, I can't even rattle off on the top of my head all the designers that could do work like that.
Yeah.
But they got this work and they do this work because of the status of the company, because of the resources of the company, not because of some creative prowess,
or even the success of their career, where they've got to a point of being able to work with the best of the best.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And a lot of these agencies, they take on the work, but then they're collaborating and getting freelancers and all this type of stuff anyway.
Correct.
So
Correct.
It's, you look at a design business on this level, you look at design business on the grandest level, and the difference is the status and the resources.
Yeah.
So
good summation.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It is very much so. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. That's the end of the podcast. Thanks so much for listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and Spotify.
And YouTube.
And watching on YouTube or IGTV. Thanks, Shane, again for coming on the show.
Nice, man.
We'll see you in the next episode of Two Red Chairs. Bye.